Hey, you guys. Today on Behind the Cards, I'm lucky enough, let me get my glasses out so we're not reflecting. Today, I'm lucky enough to talk to Christopher Butler, artist, author, and friend. I'm very lucky to call him. So let's go ahead and bring him in. Hello, Mr. Chris.
I'm on stream.
Yeah, you are.
How are you doing, love? You okay?
I'm doing well. I should let everybody know I am in Arizona in the United States near Tucson. And what part of London are you in?
I'm not in London. I'm in Liverpool. So I'm in the northwest of England. So yeah. So we've got a bit of a time difference, haven't we? Because we're sort of we're 8 hours difference between us.
7 hours difference.
7 hours.
7 hours.
Yeah.
I love talking with you because you got me through COVID a lot.
Oh, really?
Chris has a series of videos that he put out educating about tarot, walking you through the suits, giving his impression, and he does it by showing a multitude of decks to you and the differences, and it was just makes you look at them in a beautiful way, and I appreciated it. It ignited and reignited a passion in me for the cards. So because of that, I went ahead and leaned back full time into being a tarot reader, and that I fully give to you. I'm trying to find the button here, and I took my glasses off.
I knew you'd been watching them. I just didn't realize it meant that much to you. I mean, if it's any consolation, if it got you through COVID sanely, it certainly got me through COVID and kept my sanity intact. Because I actually, when we got locked down, I was in a really dreadful position in that at the time, where I live is about 11 miles away from where my parents lived. So we were kind of isolated. Their health was not good. And, so there was the stress of ensuring that they were okay. I kind of had to get them conversant with Skype so that we could at least video call every day.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, when all of that dies down, you think, oh, my God, I'm stuck in the house. I can't go anywhere, and also the other thing is, as well as an artist, my work started to dry up. And I just thought, well, I had a friend who lived in Barcelona at the time, and we were Skyping on a weekly basis, and we kind of just set each other challenges to get through COVID, because I realized that I had to come out of it the other end having achieved something. Otherwise, you think, well, this will have just been meaningless. And that's how the Learn Tarot course got done. Basically, I was locked in the house. So, I just thought, right, let's just, all the stuff that I was going to put in a book, let's just codify it into a series of YouTube lessons. And it kind of went a bit further than I planned, because I think it's the 32 of them. It's quite an in-depth course. There's a lot.
There's a lot of videos.
It was when you were talking to Ramon the other day, and I was, on your channel, and I was laughing because Ramon's managed to do this amazing potted tarot course, hasn't he? And I watched it and I thought, he's done in a couple of hours what it took me 32 lessons to do.
No, he told me that video, his best video, took him months to do.
Did he really?
And that alone made me feel better, like he's not completely perfect. Okay? That man is amazing. His work, amazing. The way he relates the information, and I'm not going to lie, he's easy on the eyeballs.
Couldn't possibly comment, but I'm also not going to disagree. So
he, I told you once your videos reignited that passion. Mm-hmm. Ramon kind of is another one that I just soaked up everything they had to offer. Uh-huh. And I want to know, how are you doing with notoriety, realizing that people view you in like, oh my God, it's Christopher
Butler. It's kind of, it's minor notoriety within a specialist bubble.
Within a specialist bubble.
Which is actually, that's nice, because let's be honest. I mean, this is a specialist world, You know, I mean, in terms of the stuff I've had published, you know, they're not massive bestsellers. I'm certainly not going to get rich, but at the same time, what is so lovely is, I mean, you know, we're all the same. I mean, what, you know, we engage with tarot because we're passionate about it. And for somebody like me, who's also an artist, you know, I sort of engage in creating decks in the same way that I do in, you know, my daily reading process. It is a passion, and it's, you know, it's one of the biggest loves of my life. What is so lovely, the bonus for somebody like me, is that I get to indulge that passion through creating those decks. But then when you discover that actually people are working with them and that they've really, your work has touched them, that is just, that's incredible. You know,
your work is not just beautiful, it's useful. It's functional art,
so,
is what I call it.
yeah.
The Oracle of the Hekatean Path,
Ah,
I've waited a year for
let me
this
just get my
bad
copy.
boy to come out.
Oh,
I was in the local witchcraft store,
mm,
and the owner gave me a catalog to look through of
yeah,
books that are going to be released in the next year. And one of the first pictures was
what's
Oracle
this?
of the Hekatean Path.
Ah,
I had no idea who you were at that point.
mm.
I was just coming into the Christopher Butler world, so to speak. But
I'm glad you did, because we've kind of sort of,
wait. We had just started communicating because
we'd
I saw
started talking.
like
Because,
Lenormand.
yeah,
A
yeah.
healing light Lenormand, and then I saw that because I went, I know this guy, and
That's the old slapper from Liverpool I've been Skyping with, you know.
right. Oh, I dropped two cards. Let's see what
Oh,
they
what
are.
did you drop? What fell out?
Adaphoros, the Torchbearer,
Ooh,
and Psychopomp, Soul Guide. So
oh, that's
both cards
interesting.
of lighting the way.
That's kind of how I feel about that deck. I mean, this, I've got to be honest with this. I mean, you've spoken to my lovely co-collaborator on this on your channel. This was the best single collaborative project I've ever worked on. You know, Ken was just such a joy to work with. Great fun. We kind of hit it off. I think we kind of built up a good friendship connection quite early on, which really helped. But boy, had this guy done his homework, you know, and it just made my job so easy, because, you know, it's wonderful when you've got an author that's actually really thought through what they want on the cards in every last detail. And that was great, because I mean, you know, we did a couple of, Ken is not local to me, but he's within fairly easy traveling distance. So
Easier than me.
oh yeah. I mean, if we were going to collaborate on a deck lover, plane fares might get in the way, you know, even though I'd like to, but we'll think about that one of these days.
But every day.
Yeah. But Ken is like sort of, he's about an hour and a half away. So we did about 5 intensives, I think, where he came to stay, and we just blitzed it, you know, for like 4 or 5 days. But I mean, it's just, it really, I feel a bit of a fraud, because it was just kind of easy. I was just being spoon fed, and he'd just say, right, this is what I'm imagining. I need this, and this in the image. And then to make it even better, I've got like the author sat next to me, giving me instructions as I'm working in Photoshop. I'm thinking, I could get used to this.
Right.
You know, because it was just, and again, I don't know. I mean, I think for me, it's very rare that happens. For the most part, I work on my own, you know, but you know, working on this, for me, it was just a very special experience. And it was also my introduction to Hecate as well. So I was into this new.
Thrilled when this deck came out. I have been a Hekatean witch for as long as I can remember. I first became aware of the goddess with an old movie. I can't remember what it was on ABC. Burnt Offerings, not Burnt Offerings. That was Grand Black, but the girl, a high school girl, was a witch, and she was using her powers for evil and everything. And she was a follower of Hekatean, but that's the first time that name entered my sphere. And for the rest of my life, it just kept popping up every now and then. And then was it not late teen? I was in. I was in. Actually, she accepted me. But the deck itself has had as much of an impact on the spiritual society already as the works by Cindy Brennan or Sarita. I can't.
Oh, Sarita. Ken knows Sarita, and she was, I mean, I've not met her personally yet, but she was hugely supportive from the early days. Very real. I think she kind of really got behind Ken and just pushed, you know.
This deck is a tool that is needed, and I cannot stress how important it is. And the whole time I was waiting for it, I was telling you, dude, I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait.
I was amazed. When Ken first approached me about this, I mean, it was kind of one of those pitches that you think, oh, that's kind of too interesting to refuse. Because, I mean, again, he'd really done his homework. He was able to explain to me in detail the structure of the deck, the concept. You know, he'd fleshed out all his ideas for the individual cards, more or less, even at the stage when he first approached me. So it was kind of like, it was so different from anything that I'd done before. But as we progressed, I think what shocked me was the fact that nobody else had done it at that stage. Because I thought, you know, this is a really significant goddess with actually, what was interesting, I started to realize a lot of the people I knew in the tarot world were devotees, you know, but it was just something that had never come up in the conversation. And you start thinking, why has nobody done this before? And it was funny because at the same time that we were working on this, there was somebody was working on a Hekatean Tarot that was done on crowdfund, a really amazing deck. And I think other than that, I think there'd been one self-published deck.
Yeah.
So
I've only been able to find one, and that was on Etsy here in the States.
Okay.
Other than that, no. And that's why I freaked out so much when I saw that coming out. I was like, oh my gosh, you heard me.
Well, I'm quite surprised that ours was the first commercially published deck that was specifically devoted to Hecate, because I am still just amazed that it's not happened before.
I've told Ken, and I'm going to tell you that I think you should make a Hecate tarot deck yourselves as a companion, because I would be standing out in the rain with my little umbrella waiting for it to be released patiently. Okay, I would be there. Speaking of releases, we're in Pride season right now.
We might just be talking about that.
Yes! Don't make me geek out on TV.
Very early stages, but we have been talking, because apart from anything else, I want to work with him again. You know, I mean, I've not had so much fun in a collaborative project in years. So I do want to work with Ken again, and we have been talking about that.
Do you think part of the joy of this collaboration comes from expanding your knowledge?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Because that's exactly where the joy of working on the Quantum Tarot with Kay Stopforth came from as well. I mean, Kay and I were hilarious. I count. Yeah. Actually, have you ever seen one of these? I don't know whether you have, because obviously you have this, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. But what a lot of people don't know with the Quantum Tarot was this was published in 2010, but this is actually version 2.0.
Well, yeah, that's what I have is 2.0.
So it was actually version 2.1 was published in 2008. And this was a small Canadian publisher that sadly went bust. They were kind of a victim of the financial crash.
Right.
So to mine and Kay's horror, you know, my first major publication and her baby had only been in print for about, you know, a year or so. And then, of course, it went out of print. But what it did was it gave us the opportunity to revisit the images. And it's, you know, I'd learned so much about Photoshop by this stage. So it's kind of a mixed blessing. But yeah, there was there was an original.
This is the Hanged Man card, everybody.
Yeah.
And my handshake, I apologize. This card is probably my favorite out of the whole deck. It's
really
gorgeous. Yeah.
Oh wow.
I'm
always interested with this deck.
Figure 4 in his legs. It's the coloring. I think it's gorgeous.
I'm always interested with this deck when people tell me what their favorite cards are, because again, when Kay approached me about this, I was just intrigued, because the thought of doing a whole deck using photos from the Hubble Space Telescope as a starting point was kind of a wow factor. But Kay was really clever, because she had a really solid tarot foundation. She'd been a reader for years, but she just had this knack of translating sort of traditional tarot concepts into, these amazing forward-looking images, and it was funny because, she'd come to me, on days when we were working on individual cards, and she'd bring up a Hubble image on the screen, and I just think, what the hell are we going to do with that? And then she'd explain, and then the pennies would start dropping. You're thinking, oh, wow, because my favorite card is the Moon, which thankfully got featured on the box. But when she sort of explained the concept out for that one, because she said, right, we're going to use the Pillars of Creation. I'm thinking, well, good luck, love, because I haven't got a clue what we're going to do here. And then when she said to me, yeah, we're going to use the Pillars of Creation, and they're going to be the towers on the card. And at that stage, thinking, I like this. But again, when you're working with someone else, it just becomes a massive journey of discovery. And
some collaborations you have to work harder to see through, and some just flow easier. I'm assuming the collaboration with Ken Payne was just one that flows smoothly.
The one with Ken flowed really smoothly. Mine and Kay's collaboration was not smooth. One of the reasons we're proud of this is because, one, we're still friends, and two, we actually, despite the difficulties we had working together, we created this. It was, in the end, we coined the term quantum git for each other.
Quantum git?
Yeah, because I love Kay to bits. She's an amazing woman, but we'd be lying if we said that we are temperamentally so different. Right. But the problem is we're different in ways that actually we're both strong-willed, and we're strong-headed, and it was hilarious. And the one thing I can say that we've got in common with Aleister Crowley and Frida Harris, we did 8 different magicians before we settled on this one. And it was getting to the stage, it was like sort of the cursed card, because we just couldn't get it right. And the irony is, when the magician that is now in the deck, we'd done these 7 different versions, and we'd spent days on them, and we were tweaking them, we were fiddling, it wouldn't work, and then we'd come up with a new concept, and it's just like,
did you feel just like Lady Frida Harris?
And it was like, it was just, but the crazy thing is, the final version, it just happened by accident, and we put it together in 10 minutes.
Really?
And yeah, the pair of us we were just looking at the screen, and it's like, oh my God, it's worked. And I'm sort of,
don't have the Hekatean Path. I just put it down somewhere, damn it.
Well, you've lost the deck.
Apparently I have. I've got decks spread out all over. I've got Chris Butler decks everywhere. Here it is. I put it to the side. I became a Chris Butler collector as soon as I saw the Healing Light Tarot. I was in. There is nothing about the Oracle of the Hekatean Path that I do not like. The size, the cardstock, the coloring.
Now that's a compliment.
The Greek names for like Cerberus, for Kerberos, just
that's Ken again. He done his. I mean, one he'd done his research, but two, God, does he know his stuff? You know?
Yeah.
And it's, I think one of the things that really shines through this deck for me is the fact that it is, on his part, it's a total work of passion and devotion. So, I mean, for me, one of the things that it was a privilege to illustrate this, because it's not just a deck. This is his devotional offering to the goddess.
That's what I told him.
Yeah.
This is not for public use. This deck is my hotline to the gods. This does not get used in public readings. I have a dozen and more decks that I keep to the side of the table for readings. That is not one of them. That is spiritual.
Did Ken show you his original working copy of the deck, his prototype? Because that just leaves me in awe. Because, you know, I mean, there's every time, I mean, we talked about it when we were filming the series for my YouTube channel on the Oracle of the Hekatean Path. But every time Ken picks that little prototype deck up, it just sends shivers down my spine. Because, I mean, one, it's the fact that that's how he, you know, devised the whole concept by literally hand creating a deck.
Like holding the seed of potential in his hand every time he does that.
But it's also, I think I have a massive respect for anything that's handmade.
I've seen him making a lot of handmade things online as for his
Yes, he does. Yeah. I mean, the nearest I've got to that is, I mean, in the early days of me creating decks, this is before print on demand. What I used to do, and I have, funny enough, I should have dug it out. I've got a handmade, well, a semi-handmade prototype of the Healing Light Tarot. And because once I completed the deck, I sort of printed them out on sheets of photographic paper, double-sided, laminated, hand cut them. And that was what I worked with for like over a year. In fact, for almost 2 years, until the commercial version came into print. But you see, with Ken's prototype Hecate deck, I mean, that is literally hand cut, hand pasted, handcrafted, and that was his devotional altar tool, you know, for several years before we, you know, before this was published. And that, as I say, that you know, that single little deck is just the seed of everything for me, and it's
So, your Sun Tarot, I have been talking with everybody who will listen. I mean, people are so sick of hearing me go on about Christopher Butler. Christopher Butler, oh my gosh, his artwork just speaks to me. They're like, yes, Chris, but we get it. It speaks to you. And then I showed up with the Sun Tarot, and everybody was like, oh, I get it. I get it. They were looking at you. My straight friends were like, these are gorgeous. I have a question. Can you tell me about the models in the Sun Tarot?
Yeah, I'm still in touch with a couple of them. This is funny enough. I was saying about, you know, the significance of the Hecate deck to Ken, obviously because it's a devotional tool. Probably the Sun Tarot is my equivalent, because this was I started this on my 38th birthday, literally, and it's the only project where the concept for a project has literally come to me full formed in an instant. And that's the only time it's ever happened in my life. And it's funny because I read a story about composer Stravinsky, and he talks about this when he was composing The Rite of Spring, because I remember, I think it was in an interview, and he said he was talking about he didn't compose it. He was just like a vessel through which it passed. And he just kind of had this flash of inspiration. And that's what this felt like. But what I didn't understand when I started this was that, I mean, it's basically a deck where the kind of task I set myself is, what would a tarot deck look like if there was a gay man in every single card? So in effect, it's like, how do we as gay men experience the scenes that are on these cards? Right. And of course, I was 38. By that stage, I had broken free from quite abusive, toxic evangelical Christianity. I'd broken free from conversion therapy. I was beginning to sort of live freely as a gay man. But what I didn't have was a sense of self-acceptance or confidence. I still had a lot of internalized homophobia, self-hatred, a lot of fear, and a lot of insecurity.
Things that
And
were
of course,
instilled in us on a base level from the time we
yeah.
were born.
The irony is, what I didn't realize was that the journey I was going to end up on by creating this deck, because by actually saying to myself, well, what would this card look like with gay men in it? You know, in designing these 78 cards, I went on a journey where, in effect, I was putting myself in each tarot scene. If you put a gay man in there, I might as well have put myself in there.
Well, put yourself there, yeah.
Yeah. And through a 10-month period of creating the first version of this deck, I unwittingly kind of resolved all of my identity and self-acceptance issues. So I kind of went into the process of creating this as a sort of hesitant gay man with a lot of confidence and self-hatred issues, and actually came out of the process of creating this as a fully affirmed, confident gay man with a a healthy sense of self-acceptance. But that's when I learned that actually the tarot has a massive capacity for healing. These are all archetypes of human nature, human existence.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that the most important thing for the tarot for me is it shows us who we are and who we can be. So yeah, just for
I'm
example,
going to add one more in there and say,
go on, what's that?
and who we are and who we will be.
Yeah.
I explain when I do my readings,
Mhm.
I look at continuing cycles from the past that are affecting cycles in the present, which will have an effect on cycles in the future. Understanding these cycles is paramount, and that's where my focus is when I do my readings, understanding. And tarot cards bring that to you. Your Sun Tarot book that came out with it is one of my favorite reference materials.
Is it?
For tarot? Oh, heck yeah, you've got it all in here.
Oh.
You've got, like the Magician card, everybody. It not only gives you the picture, but underneath at the bottom, the main primary traditional meanings of the cards, and then a complete deep dive into each card. It is beautiful. I love not only the artwork, but the information and how it's presented. I
had fun writing about the court cards, because that was one area of the deck where I really sort of started
your
to.
Herald of Pentacles is kind of hot. I'm telling you, they all are, but
I'm still I'm still in touch with him, and yeah, I'll agree with that one. He still is.
He looks like my ex, so every time he pops up, I'm like, hey.
I'll tell him you said that.
Yeah, I'm in. There's been a lot of joy in creating your decks. What's the deck that you look back and just it makes you cringe? Are there any?
Oh, what, in terms of the ones I've created?
Ones that you've created. There's a lot of ones that other people have created that I cringe at.
Nothing that makes me cringe, but you see, what people don't see is, anyone who buys one of my decks sees the finished product. So like with the Sun Tarot, this is what they see. Whereas it actually went through 2 revisions before it went to print. So the first version of the Sun Tarot, when I look at it now, it seems really naive. And also, I was just starting out with Photoshop at that stage. So actually, what you see now is a result of, visually, is a result of 2011 Chris Butler working at the computer. Whereas, because the first version was, was 2005 Chris Butler. Because this sat dormant for a good few years before it was published. It got published in 2012. But also, I think I wasn't ready to write the book until 2011. Creating the deck was one thing, but then actually putting all of those concepts and putting my journey into words, that was something else.
And when did the Healing Light Lenormand come into effect?
Oh, now that was where are we?
Pardon me.
Healing Light Tarot was published in 2017. I actually, funny enough, I signed the publishing deal in 2015. But the funniest thing, random funny stories. Lo Scarabeo are in Italy, so obviously they're a couple of hours. I think they're a couple of hours ahead of us time wise.
Right.
So I'd sent the publication proposal to the Healing Light Tarot to Lo Scarabeo, and I'd immediately gone on holiday. I'd actually gone down to Somerset, which is the southwest of England, for a radical fairy gathering. Literally the day after I sent the proposal to Lo Scarabeo. So I thought, yeah, go on holiday. I'm not going to hear anything for at least a month. And of course, I heard back within 3 days. The problem is that, yeah, they're 2 hours ahead. So they basically emailed me at what would have been 9:30 in the morning for them to say, we really like this, we'll take it. The problem is that translated to me at 7:30 in the morning, sat in the toilet block of this campsite on the toilet, scrolling through my emails, and then all of a sudden, apparently I let out a scream because somebody had just been told I published. My poor mate Bev thought I was having some kind of heart attack in the toilets. She's hammering on the gents' door saying, "Are you all right?" And it's like, I've just been published.
That's my new favorite story. I love it.
I've just destroyed the dignity of the Healing Light Tarot for you there. But no, the Healing Light Lenormand came in about a year later because I'd done a Lenormand deck for Schiffer, I think in 2013, which was I'm really proud of. But I'd got a lot of feedback from people who were using it, and also I'd sort of been using Lenormand for a lot longer by that stage, and I kind of wanted to revisit it, and it just felt right to revisit it in the same style as the Healing Light Tarot, and that was just a really lovely fun project because I was doing it in my own time for my own pleasure. And yeah, and eventually again Lo Scarabeo said, yeah, we'll take it, which was a real bonus.
I'm going to talk about the Healing Light Lenormand for a second.
I
love it. I love the fact that when I got it, you were nice enough to give me your artist impressions for each card while you created them.
Yeah.
I, having troubles with my hands, appreciate the size of them. It's just the right thickness.
Okay.
For those who don't know, I did have a brain surgery and I was left with tremors. I don't have the motor skills that I used to. This larger size deck works perfect for me. Unfortunately, I don't trust myself reading Lenormand cards completely yet. So I haven't used them in pro readings. I keep telling myself, I'm going to do it this next one. And then I panic and don't do it.
I'll strike your deal. Next time we do a vid call, let's do some practice on each other because I'm rusty.
Oh,
I spent the whole of the pandemic concentrating on tarot and creating the Learn Tarot course, and then everything that I've been working on since then has either been tarot or it's been Hecate. So I'm rusty. So we'll exchange readings and we'll dust off the cobwebs.
I've read cards with you on several occasions, and I've never been nervous. But when you say this with the Lenormand deck, my stomach just twisted like, oh, shit.
Yeah, but you're all of a sudden, it's like your stomach's going to be twisting. And then, we'll be halfway through the reading. You'll be thinking, oh, God, he is rusty, isn't he?
Okay. We'll go that route.
Because it's funny. I mean, at the time when I was doing that deck, of course, I'd been working with Lenormand a lot. I'd already written and researched that first book on Lenormand with the Schiffer set. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of in my comfort zone, but I've not worked with Lenormand as much over the last few years. And at some stage, I'd actually like to do another Lenormand deck. And also because I want to do a Learn Lenormand course for YouTube. But at the same time, I'm thinking I need to brush up. I'm not quite ready for that yet. And I was actually One of the things I did when I started planning the Learn Lenormand course, I've got a friend in London, and I kind of, he agreed to be my sort of Lenormand guinea pig, and I taught him from scratch. And that's kind of got me back in the zone, but I still need a few cobwebs dusting off. So we can work on that.
I would love that. I'm, like I say, I want to make it a part of my arsenal when I do readings, especially at events, because it's such a stunning deck.
It's a great tool, and it actually works to me in such a different way from tarot. You know, you can kind of,
because of the size for professional readings, so because the people can see it. I didn't mean to cut you off there. Please continue.
No, you're fine. I'm really glad you said that, because the Los Scarabaeos specifically create these large Lenormand decks, but it's what we call Marmite in the UK. And it's people either love it or they hate it.
I was going to say Marmite is one of those things you either love or hate, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's the problem with the large scale Lenormand decks cards. A lot of people have said, oh, you know, we don't like these because it's difficult to do a grand tableau because you need a giant table for them. But then there's other people like you who have said, actually, this really works. So it's great because I know that there's room for both. You know?
I've laid them out in the pattern of the grand tableau, and it actually is perfect. I can see everything wonderfully. I don't have a problem laying them out like that.
See,
I know what people are talking about.
I use them for grand tableau, but I'll use the Healing Light Lenormand for a grand tableau when I'm working with Lenormand houses, because I'll lay them all out in sequence, 1 to 36, but that then means that I can use one of my smaller Lenormand decks to then lay out on top of them, so I can use them to denote the houses. And you know, sometimes it's lovely having those two different sizes, but then I don't know whether you do this, I combine them with tarot readings. You know, if I'm doing a Celtic cross, very often I'll lay a row of 3, 4, 7 Lenormand cards underneath, because they give a very different type of reading.
They're toners. When you're a hairstylist, you have two types of colors, permanent and semi-permanent. Permanent is going to change your hair color. The toners will change the tone of that hair color slightly. And I know it's a weird way of looking at tarot cards, but I need to tie in everything I've ever been with my tarot cards.
It's a very sensible way of looking at it for me, because again, they add that row of Lenormand cards underneath will add nuance, and to me it will also bring a sort of adjacent perspective to the tarot reading, which really helps. And you know, sometimes I've done a Celtic cross, and it's when you turn that row of Lenormand cards over and you think, oh wow, this now, it's almost like sort of putting color onto the black and white photograph, you know.
The favorite spread that I've started doing with the Lenormand cards is chakra spreads and zodiac spread.
Yeah.
I will read the energy of the space with whatever Lenormand card pops up in there. So like for Cancer at the bottom with empathy, say I got the Messenger card. I would read it that way. Type 2, but since I'm not completely comfortable with my definitions yet, I'm just scared to say them. But that's a whole other topic.
You just need more. You're just lacking in confidence, because it's all there. You know, I just checked in chat, because we've got my darling mate Anthony's there, and also Soul Alchemy and Indigo Jaguar who said hi. So
hey Soul, how you doing, love?
Yeah.
So congratulations. You were the very first person to pop in on one of my live streams ever, because I just started doing live streams. So yay, you now hold that spot. Chris, I want to go ahead and take you down the fool's journey now.
Oh, go on, go for
it. And we're going to be using the Healing Light.
Okay, right. Let me just grab my copy of the deck.
Okay.
And it's funny, I love the Sun Tarot. That's the one I'm the most proud of, but this is very close to my heart. not least for the fact that I was sat on the toilet at 7:30 in the morning when I got the publishing deal.
This picture right here of the Fool is
Yeah.
the one that I fell in love with, and it's not so much a single thing on the card. It's the silhouette grabbed me, first of all, of him leaping off the cliff. It's the hat he's wearing to symbolize the Fool, because that just is so modern and archaic at the same time. It's an ambiguous deck, and that's what I love about it. I don't like decks who are definitely one type of vibe. This is a deck of possibilities, and that's what I love about it.
Ooh, hang on, I've just dropped a card. There we go. It's fine. I'm glad we're starting with the Fool, because actually on one level, it's the most precious card in this deck, because this Fool card is a direct tribute to the person that I consider to be my tarot daddy.
Really?
Yep.
And who's your tarot daddy?
Do you remember this?
Daddy. I do. Oh, really?
Yep. And I'll tell you why, because I mean, a lot of people will know this already. It's a story I've told quite a lot. I discovered the tarot age 13 watching the James Bond Live and Let Die film. And of course,
Jane Seymour.
Yeah, Jane Seymour. I want that hat and I want that reading table, I mean, reading table with attached cape and hat. You don't get any camper than that. But of course, the cards were illustrated by a British artist, a surrealist artist called Fergus Hall. So back in 1971, he did these. So scroll forward to 1980. Live and Let Die was broadcast on UK TV. I think it was the first time it was shown on the TV over here. I knew nothing about tarot, and I was just as the third, I was just like, what are those? Because I'd had a fascination with playing cards from when I was a kid. That was instilled into me by my grandmother. She was a really wicked card player. There were always playing cards lying around the house. And for sort of an artistic kid, I loved all the patterns and intricacies on the court cards. But, all of a sudden there was this deck of cards that this woman was telling the future with, and she was uncovering secrets. And
looking good doing it.
And looking fabulous doing it. So scroll forward a couple of weeks. Thankfully, I had really, really understanding parents who drove me all the way to Manchester, which was 30 miles away.
I was going to say, is that fair?
Yeah.
I don't
know. And we found a shop that sold tarot. So, of course, I didn't know what I was buying. So I came home with this, which is a Swiss 1JJ, which I love. I still love, but it wasn't the deck. So, of course, a couple of weeks later, when I'd saved up pocket money, we went back. And then I bought myself one of these, a blue box Waite-Smith, which I discovered was also in Live and Let Die, because there was cards from the Waite-Smith featured there as well. And then it was journey number 3. I went back and then I spotted, oh, that's the one, because I recognized the High Priestess. So they were my tarot journey. They're still my 3 favorite decks. If I had to lose the rest of the collection, I could lose everything else. I couldn't lose these, but scroll forward to when I was doing the Healing Light Tarot, and I wanted to sort of pay tribute. So there's the Fool from the Tarot of the Witches. So I wanted the same Fool in silhouette. I wanted him jumping off the cliff, but the reds, the yellows, and the blues are direct homage to this card. Nice. So that is my direct Fergus Hall tribute. What is so lovely is that scroll forward to, I think it was 2019, I managed to track him down on the net, and he's now in his 80s. And I was able to send him a copy of the Healing Light Tower and say, look, that is your deck's daughter. If it wasn't for your deck, this would not be here, because if it wasn't for that man, I would not.
Daddy.
So that's my tarot daddy, and what an amazing guy. He's still painting in his 80s and creating amazing artwork. So yeah, that's
When you started creating tarot decks, how did you view that? Anthony just came in. Hi, Anthony. How you doing?
That. It was kind of like an ambition fulfilled, because I mean, of course, when the evangelical church got their teeth into me, of course, tarot went out the window, and that's a story in itself. But
well, I want to do a segment on men's spirituality, especially with you, Ramon, and I was thinking of asking Gerald also. Gerald Schwab.
Oh yes, that would be wonderful. Yeah,
I would like to discuss things, but continue.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I came back to tarot as I broke free from the church, and it's funny, as a teenager, I thought, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful to be able to draw my own deck, but it seemed completely out of reach. And then when I started hand drawing a deck in my 30s, and it didn't get finished, but at that stage, that was when I discovered Photoshop. And I was really lucky, because at the time I had a boyfriend who was a web designer. So he kind of gave me some of the basics. I'd started chatting to Ciro Marchetti online through the Eclectic Tarot Forum. And it was in the days when he just created the Gilded Tarot. It wasn't published. And that man was a sweetie, because, I mean, he knew that I was starting work on a deck. And, he said, why don't you go digital? And of course, I did a few experiments. And he was great, because he just goes, when you finish the card, send it over and I'll give you some feedback. So I kind of got this sort of unofficial mentoring process, and he was just really, really generous. I'd send him work and he'd say, try this, try this technique, try that. Have you discovered this tool in Photoshop? And then sort of after about, I don't know, it was about a 6-month period, I'd created my first deck. And it's a clunky affair. It was my Photoshop, learn Photoshop project. And I'm still incredibly proud of it. It wouldn't be publishable in a million years.
Really?
No, it's because it's a real, it's kind of like a, but that was how the best way to learn anything like Photoshop is to have a big extended project. Because of course, every time I was doing a new card, I was improving my skills. But I can remember finishing it and just being so proud and thinking, this is my deck. Thinking, right, that's it. I've done it now. And then, of course, never dreamed a couple of months later I'd have the idea for the Sun Tarot in my head, and then I ended up creating deck number 2. And the crazy thing is, it just got addictive, and I've never stopped.
The Healing Light Tarot, since I got it, has been one of my go-to decks. It's
really
vibe. So it sits right here. It's right next to my Rider-Waite-Smith deck.
Wow.
For easy access. When I say that it is in my arsenal for everyday use, it is in my arsenal for everyday use.
Oh, that's fantastic. You go for dark decks, though, don't you? I mean, I can see why I've all my decks.
Ambiguous decks, dark decks. If it has blackness that I can pull images from the void, is how my brain translates things. So decks like the True Black deck or the Lost Soul Tarot that have color background, I appreciate that. The Rider-Waite-Smith black deck I don't like, because my brain still sees the color. So it has to be totally off the wall. The High Priestess is the next card on our journey.
Oh, okay.
Now,
I like this one.
No, the Magician. The Magician.
Oh, the Magician.
I jumped. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot where we were. Let's talk about you being a professional reader. What was your first professional reading job?
Oh, my first professional tarot reading. Oh, God. I God help the poor client. I was so nervous. Really, it was actually when I was still living in London. And I put a notice up in my local gay pub. And of course, I got this phone call. Yeah, I mean, this was, you're talking early 2000s. And of course, this guy, met up with this guy, did his cards. It was an adequate reading, but I kind of that's when I realized, one, how nervous I was, and two, how far I had to go. And I did a few more, and then I kind of thought, no, I need to pull away from this for a while. And then I've revisited it at various different stages. I went through a stage in the 2010s where I was reading professionally, but it just didn't feel right. Where I kind of felt I came into my own is with the advent of video calling, because I read sporadically. I mean, for me, it's more important about teaching tarot. That's for me, that's where
I'm not gonna lie, it helps that your voice sounds the way it does. You, Ramon, when you guys are teaching something on your classes, I go ahead, keep talking. I'm listening. Yeah, it's just it makes it easier to absorb what you're saying.
That's quite a relief, because I mean, the problem is, you might have noticed I talk and I keep talking, so I'm kind of thinking there's probably other people sitting there thinking, oh God, when's he going to shut up?
No, and that's actually something I keep making reference to Ramon, and in case you guys don't know, that's Moon Scarab. He's just a doll, and he's so sweet and beautiful on the
he's a fabulous guy,
on the outside, and it's just not fair, It's just unfair. How
he's also an amazing teacher. I mean,
yes.
I hadn't watched many of his videos. I thought, wow, this guy is kind of born to do this.
Yes.
He's just got a real gift for communication and concise communication. That's why I envy.
Speaking of communication, the Magician card does deal with Mercury, the planet of
communication. Yeah, and also that's really Thoth inspired. There's not the final version of the Magician that made its way into the Thoth Tarot, but one of Frieda Harris's, not quite their versions, shows the Magician with multiple arms.
I love it.
Yeah, it was an intuitive thing. That's kind of just how I saw him, and I thought, let's go for it. And I've got him. He's standing in a rainbow because I kind of feel that encapsulates that universal energy, and all the different frequencies of power that the Magician can channel.
Yeah, and the way I read this card is not only control and manifestation. He's harnessing the different energies from, I call it the different chakra forms.
Yeah.
But this is a card of communication. It's how would you describe your style of communication?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, do you mean visually or in the way that I read?
At the way that you read, and if you want to throw visually in there, go for it.
Well, probably the way that I read is, I mean, for me, I want the cards to mirror back people's experience so that they can actually understand it better. So, I suppose that underpins the whole communication thing. A reading experience to me is not about me reading for the querent. It's actually about a collaborative thing where I can facilitate that space. I can facilitate the space where the cards can become mirrors, and then we can sort of walk through those mirrors together and explore what they mean for the individual that I'm reading for. That's very much my ethos if I'm teaching tarot. To me, it's a book of human experience, and it's also a pack of mirrors, because we are every single character in this deck at some stage in our life. The scenes and the dramas that are encapsulated in these cards, to me, they're happening all 78 of these are simultaneously at play in our lives. And when we do a reading, that's what those cards trigger in us, and they reflect back those experiences to us. We're all, I mean, like with the Five of Pentacles, we're always in these kind of conflict states that actually we're growing through struggle. There'll always be things in our life that we are succeeding at, the victory card. There'll also always be areas where we're failing, the Five of Swords. We will always every day of our lives, we're in a position where we have to make choices. You know, some stage or another during the course of the day, there'll always be things where we have to walk away, you know, things where we have to kind of recognize, you know, limitations and defeat. We're always being called to account. You know, every single one of these cards you could look at and you say, yeah, that's happened to me today.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I love about this. And if you understand the present, you can make informed choices about the future. And also, when you understand the present, you can begin to understand the past and process it.
That's exactly what I just told you.
Yeah.
The thing about the Magician card I love is the communication aspect, because, and I confused the hell out of a class I was teaching one day when I threw in the concept, you can't manifest something until you communicate your needs to the universe.
Yeah.
Because somebody asked, how does the planet Mercury come into play there? And this is how I view the planet Mercury coming into play.
Yeah.
You cannot manifest a job until you communicate your need for it. You cannot manifest a relationship until you communicate with another person. It's just communication is key to manifestation.
His kind of communication, to me, he's a conduit, you know. So I mean, for me, he's channeling obviously energy from above to below. That's why I wanted the lightning passing through him. But that's the element of the magician's communication for me. He's communicating what he draws down,
exactly,
you know, and he's in effect sharing it. You know, he brings that sort of divine energy down into the material world so that we can experience it.
I actually started talking about that in a beginner level class and got a lot of blank looks.
Really?
Manifestation. It's about manifestation. The High Priestess card is next up on our hit list. This gorgeous.
Incidentally, we are not going to get through all 24, all 22 of these, are we?
I know we're on a crunch here.
We've got about half an hour. That's when my full-time care duties start to kick in again.
Got you, my love. I'm going to go through and pick the main ones I want to know, and the High Priestess is one of the main ones.
Yeah.
It's the first question I ask my students is, where do you believe that your insight comes from? And do you consider yourself psychic?
Yeah. See, she's key for me. I mean, this is, I think, probably one of my favorite cards in the Major Arcana. I always loved the High Priestess card from the Waite-Smith, and particularly I loved this High Priestess from the Tarot of the Witches. But I've always seen her. She's such a liminal figure for me. She stands on a boundary. You know, I mean, in the Waite-Smith card, it's the veil. You know, she's, you know, once you draw that veil back, you step between the pillars and there's a very different landscape behind it. But what I wanted to show here is, again, a really liminal figure, because, you know, she's between the two pillars on my card. But actually, when you look closely, these pillars are waterfalls. You know, she's standing between the two waterfalls. She's actually transparent. And when you look at her, you know, there is a waterfall passing through her. But again, she's drawing moon energy down. You know, I had this vision of the priestess sort of reaching up to sort of touch the sphere of the moon. You know, so she's kind of always in between. And she's that gateway figure for us. You know, to me, she's the gateway to intuition, the gateway to feminine spirituality, you know, that world of the intuition. You know, I think where masculine spirituality is very much about codifying. It's about that. To me, it's all about spiritual tradition, you know, in the sense that, you know, the Hierophant is a guardian of, say, spiritual texts of any given tradition. You know, he codifies spiritual law, whereas the High Priestess is, you know, she touches the unseen. You know, whereas the Hierophant is about, you know, passing on knowledge. She's about tasting the spiritual world, you know, in a very hands-on way.
Right.
The difference between intuition and the rational, isn't it, really? So I could probably go round in circles for ages talking about her, but that's, I just wanted to show that in between space, and she almost like she's the gatekeeper for us. For us to pass beyond the veil, we kind
Well,
of
she
have to.
definitely is for me, because I
Yeah,
associate the high priestess with the goddess Hecate, who
ah,
is liminal,
yeah,
and walks
yeah,
between. So
yeah. And I hope I kind of captured some of that on here.
yeah, did.
Yeah.
uh,
She's also, I mean, you can see here there's a mandala on each of these cards, but she's actually emerging out of the mandala. So for me, I wanted to show that she herself is a very healing figure.
Since the mandala runs through a lot of your cards on more than one deck, can you quickly give an explanation on what that is?
Yeah. This is, I owe my passion from the mandala to my dear friend Penny, who I ran a tarot workshop with in 2015. And Penny and I were originally going to be collaborating on a tarot deck. And it's a collaboration that didn't work. But at that stage, I then went my own way and just decided I was going to create a deck anyway, which is turned out to be this. But I learned about the symbol of the mandala from Penny. And it's basically, there we go. Let's have a look at the card back. So there is a mandala. It's basically where two circles overlap to create an almond shape. But the idea is it's where two opposites overlap and unify. You have this healing space that's created in between. So it's a symbol of unity. It's a symbol of healing. It's a portal, to higher reality. So, but where we actually see it the most, where we see it traditionally in the tarot, is on the world card, because you see the world dancer within the mandala wreath,
right?
So it's very it's very apt on the world card, in that as a portal and as a symbol of healing. So that's obviously the world is that that ultimate symbol of completion and then stepping into a higher reality. So what I did was, with this card, with this deck, I wanted to put a mandala on each card to show where I kind of placed them loosely, and it's for me to show where I feel the healing aspect of the card is. So here, the priestess emerges out of the mandala, so she herself is the healing. That very gatekeeper thing is the healing aspect.
Speaking of healing, let's jump ahead through the tarot, because I know you're.
Go for it.
Sure. Let's go straight to the three cards I know are your favorites.
Go on. Oh, Sun, Moon, and Star.
Sun, Moon, and Star. Got them right here in my hands.
Yeah.
And I know, for me, the cards that I look at are the Magician, the King of Wands, and the High Priestess, because they are cards that I've used in the past for significators, plus my Goddess card. Those are the ones that I look at.
Yeah.
And if honestly they don't speak to me, I'm not going to bother with the deck. The Star card is so unbelievably gorgeous. The way you have trying to get the glare off. There you go.
I loved creating this. This was one of my happy images from this deck, and it was done quite early on, but I had a really vivid idea of what I wanted to create. And the mandalas here, I mean, you've got the star. I've surrounded the 7 smaller stars I've done in a sphere, but then you can see you've almost got like a continuum of mandalas.
Yeah.
And I wanted the star itself to be at the center of one of these spheres, and then the sphere itself created by the surrounding 7 stars. But to me, this is one of the ultimate healing cards, in that it's about, I mean, if you view the maiden on the card as the actual embodiment, a personification of the star itself, she's scattering stardust on land and water, and that is a healing symbol for me.
I see this card, and when it comes up during my readings, in my head, I hear she's dancing healing.
Yeah.
Her spell is being done by dance. Is how I read this.
You got it in one, because funny enough, that's how I envisaged her. Okay. I wanted this gleeful dancing figure with stardust just scattering out of her hands. in the same way, I mean, you see the same healing on more traditional cards in that she's pouring healing waters onto land and water, you know, and it's a unity thing as well, because the fact that she's, you know, pouring onto land and water or scattering onto land and water here just unifies the two together.
And I add into that the aspect that Aquarius is the star. And Aquarius people will walk away if something's not serving them. They will find their healing in another place. I just, there's so many ways I could read your cards, and it just drives me happy. The next one up is the Moon card.
The Moon. Oh, now this is one of the cards that fascinates me the most in the deck, because to me, it's the Moon card it's just a whole narrative in itself. But I stayed close to tradition, but actually I just wanted this giant pool, you know, with the dogs on the shore, and you can see the crayfish emerging and, you know, going up towards the moon. But my version is quite dark. You know, one of the things that fascinates me about the Waite-Smith is the moon is in full daylight. You know, it's a daylight moon. This is very much a nocturnal moon, but again, the mandorla is between the two towers. You know, it's very much that the crayfish is following a path here, you know, and it has to make that journey, you know, towards that healing portal. The crayfish for me is always the key figure in this card, because to me, it symbolizes our deepest instincts and our deepest fears that are all being drawn up from the pool of the unconscious, you know, and it's only as they're brought into the light that we actually find healing.
Yeah. It's partly a card of battling instincts, controlling your instincts. You've got the domesticated dog, the wild wolf. What I want to know is the two towers. What you don't put anything in your cards just randomly. Tell me about the towers.
I found this incredible antique etching of what was presumably the Tower of Babel, and they were just so fearsome. I just looked and I thought, that's my towers. And I kind of wanted this sense of, because the two towers actually in the Moon card, the crayfish was always the sort of most important key figure that intrigued me the most. But it always fascinated me that you had these two watchtowers that were almost like Rapunzel's towers, particularly on the Waite-Smith, because there's a window up top, but there's no door. And it always, I thought, you know, they were like these sort of markers on either side of the path. You know, this, whenever you look at that card, you just have this sense that you can't go anywhere else. You've got to go between them. And I wanted to sort of really emphasize that on here. So, you know, they're just quite gargantuan. You know, they're really out of this world. They're quite otherworldly. And also on my card, they're sort of on the other shore. You know, you've got to go through the pool and come out the other side. And then they really do mark your way, because beyond the towers is the mandorla. That's the healing portal.
Yeah, it doesn't show up very well on camera, but the mandorla is here.
Yeah.
The image looking out of the moon gives a sense of being overseen,
yes,
and observed.
Yeah,
which again, my readings also.
Yeah, and I wanted that sort of posture and angle that you see in the Waite-Smith card. That was actually, I went to a sculpture park in Devon in the UK years ago, and there was this beautiful copper sculpture of a face, and I photographed it, and that's it's my photograph of that sculpture that I ghosted in there. That's the face. And it was just, there was such a serenity about it, you know.
It's a calm watching, and I love that. Here's the thing about those towers that I haven't told you. I don't remember my dreams very often, and when I do, they usually tie in with something eventually. I had a nightmare a long time ago where I think I had just seen a zombie movie, but everybody was trying to get to this one place,
Mm.
and there were cars coming on roads from different way, and they were kind of converging and going up
Yeah.
to a tower that looked exactly like this. So I don't know if I saw that image somewhere or what, but that
Oh, okay.
the tower that everybody was driving to. So for me, this is safety. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
We talk about how people can charge their cards with certain meanings in addition to the standards. To me, this card is trying to reach safety with the crayfish going up.
That's actually, I hadn't thought of it like that, but that is totally spot on, because actually very often safety comes when we actually are able to face and name those instincts and fears. Right. And in this case, to me, again, that's symbolized when the crayfish really comes up onto land and steps through that gateway. You know,
exactly. That's where it all begins. That's not the destination. That's the beginning. Mm-hmm. The sun card, I normally ask about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That this is a card of happiness. I would normally ask, are
mm-hmm.
you willing to speak on your personal life right now?
Yeah.
Okay. And America would, and I'm sure most of Britain would like to know, is Chris Butler taken?
Well, I'm in a crossroads situation, because I've just met somebody wonderful, and you know, it's probably why I've got a big beaming smile on my face. But yeah, that card sums it up. You know, the other thing with this card is as well, I mean, the sun is always, we always kind of traditionally perceive the sun as a masculine deity, whereas, Gerald's just popped up in chat.
Oh, has he?
He has. Define taken. Gerald of taken as in seriously hot guy who kind of came out of nowhere.
Right, we're just getting the dirt, Gerald.
Totally not expected. So yeah, but that's actually nice too. If it lasts, wonderful. I'll be very happy.
Well, I'm glad that
but we're early days. But yeah, there's a happiness here that I wanted to show, and also that we traditionally see the sun as a masculine. You know, very often we see, if the sun is a deity, it's perceived as masculine. But I wanted to kind of also show that, in some traditions, the sun is a feminine deity. And one of my inspirations, one of my favorite sci-fi novels is a novel called Earth Search by James Follett. And there's this scene where, this is set, it's a complex, it's set millions of years in the past. And the premise is that the people of Earth came to Earth from a different Earth when their solar system became unstable.
Sorry.
Hi, Evelyn. But there's one thing where they actually visit, one of the characters visits the custodian of the past, which is this sort of free will computer that's buried in the depths of one of the moons of the solar system. And she's given him a history of the solar system and its creation. And she talks about the planets as beautiful children of the sun, obediently orbiting their mother. And that was something that really stuck with me when this card started out as, this was also, the original image was part of a failed Oracle deck collaboration. We got so far and it just ran out of steam. And I created this sort of sun goddess image, and it was just too good to let go. And so I brought it over into the Healing Light Tarot, and then also used elements of other cards and I kind of mishmashed them together. So I wanted to show the sun goddess. She's the center of the solar system. If you look closely, the planets are orbiting her. You've got this celestial temple, but then also you've got, these male and female figure here, basically celebrating freedom, celebrating warmth. The albatross, basically it's the bird that flies to the highest altitude. Again, that represents freedom to me. And then the field of sunflowers. But you see, the mandala is between each of these two figures. They're in a sphere of their own, and it's the overlapping of the spheres creates the mandala. And I wanted to show, like, sort of, freedom and healing in relating, in connection. And yeah, so it's not a traditional sun card by any means, but it's, you know, it's everything I wanted to express. That's kind of my personal take on the sun.
I love this card because it's what I call a hybrid card when with your deck. Some of your cards are hybrid cards. This one has the energy of the judgment card, also of them being awakened and called forward in the images, and I really just dig on it. The albatross, even right in the middle of the mandorla, there's a little explosion of light or electricity power, basically. I love that.
It's like when, I mean, we don't gaze into the sun because it, you know, it will damage our eyes. And I kind of wanted to somehow pay homage to that kind of radiance and brilliance. And, you know, the fact that she is kind of ecstatically you know, the sun is flinging her arms into the air, you know, it's, you know, the rays of the sun. Is it a crown? Is it a throne? But yeah, I just wanted wild energy. But
I have a tattoo on my back, the whole back, that has rays like
that. Okay.
The images that you put out evoke so many different emotions, and that's why I appreciate your decks. The next deck you have coming out, you were speaking, may possibly be a what again?
I mean, we may or may not, may or may not be considering doing a Hecate tarot. So we are, it's really in the early days, and there's going to be a lot of work there. But
so you're in the concept stage. That's I'll take it.
So I'm also, I've got two exciting projects in the early stages, because I mean, Ken and I have been talking about doing a Hecate tarot, but I also, I was really privileged last year. I got invited to do a commemorative major arcana for the 20th anniversary of the UK Tarot Conference. So that's what we ended up creating, the Arcana 20. And these were great fun, because the brief for this from Kim, who runs the conference, was to do a deck where each card basically features a different speaker from, you know, the 20 years anniversaries of the 20 years of the conference. So that's the sun card from Arcana 20. But the face in the sun is actually a lovely lady called Callie French, who is a tarot teacher and writer and a deck creator. Again, the moon card, we've got Stephen Bright, who is a deck creator and author, in there. And each card, again, is somebody. Liz Dean on the star, Tarot Golden Hill as the tower. And it was great fun to do. But I've recently been talking with Kim about maybe we could possibly turn this into a 78 card deck as well. So, you know, it's 2 decks on the go, you know.
Notice I did not squee on camera. So
this is my favorite. Andrea Aste as the devil. So fitting. Because Kim had said to him, you know,
for the fool there.
Oh, do you want to laugh?
Yeah, let's see what you got.
It's some old slapper from the UK. I don't know. I mean, I've recognized him from somewhere.
Oh, be on the lookout. Okay. Chris, you're an amazing person. I need to hear advice for new readers before I let you go.
Advice for new readers. Ooh, right. Practical advice first. If you're coming to the tarot new and you want to learn, I mean, it's really important that you pick a deck that, you know, you personally connect with. You know, it's got to be a deck that you love, that you feel you connect with, that the artwork inspires you. That's the most important thing. But secondarily, what I would say to people, if you're going to get serious about this and you're going to learn, have your deck, which is the one that you're going to work with. But if I can give you one bit of advice, go and buy 3 other decks, because I say to people, the cornerstone for anyone's tarot practice, you should have a Marseille deck, you should have a Waite-Smith, and you should have a Thoth deck. If you get to know those 3 decks, you'll be able to read with anything.
And I have all 3 of those decks sitting next to me.
Yeah. So always have those. You may not use them on a day-to-day basis, but get to know them, get to understand them, and you will literally be able to read with anything, because they're the 3 pillars of modern tarot as far as I'm concerned. Basic, I mean, in terms of like other advice, if you're coming to tarot, just enjoy it. You've got to be passionate about it. That's what
says, yes, get the 3 system decks.
Absolutely, yeah. Did I say hi to Evelyn, by the way? Because I think you did, but hi, Evelyn, if I didn't. But no, definitely have those 3 decks. But the other thing is as well is just get to know your cards inside out. Treat them as a friend. Treat them as your favorite picture book. If you know your cards intimately, you will give good readings. It's not just about formula meanings. It's about actually building up a relationship with the images. So that's my advice for a new reader.
That's powerful advice. Understanding your card from every angle is something I do like to talk about. If you only have one weapon, wouldn't you know everything about that weapon? Yeah. I'm not saying tarot's a weapon. I'm saying, making an analogy. I'm thrilled to have been able to talk to you. Your insight is always incredible. Your artwork, fantastic. Do you have anything coming up that we should know about other than the deck?
I'm going to be teaching an online workshop in November. Keep an eye out on my social media. It's called Travel with Tarot, and I'm teaching it with a wonderful lady called Titania Fay, who I met at last year's UK Tarot Conference. We were actually originally going to be teaching it this week, but unfortunately both of us have had to postpone due to personal circumstances. I mean, some people may know I'm full-time carer for my mum who's 84.
Which is why we're about to call this.
Which is why we're about to call this, because full-time care duties are about to kick in. My poor mum ended up doing a long stint in hospital, and she's in recovery. So Tanya also had family issues as well. So we've postponed until November, but that's basically a 1-day workshop where we're going to be focusing in on using the tarot as visual portals to trigger the imagination. And, basically, again, it's my trademark of using the tarot as mirrors and scenes that we step into and explore, real life issues through. So that's coming up in November.
And then information on that be on your website?
It will, yeah. Once we've actually fully rescheduled it, that's all going to go up on my website and on my social media.
Scrolling at the bottom, you guys.
Yeah, so check out, if you go to christopherbutler.cravado.com, that's got links to everything else, my social media, my YouTube channel, and again, Tanya and I will be posting very soon on that. But other than that, I'm just carrying on working on the deck projects that I'm doing. I did do a deck of divinatory playing cards a couple of years ago that I just never did anything with, so I'm tidying those up at the moment and hopefully pitching those to publishers. So yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Phenomenal. You're awesome. And I'm lucky.
I get to do what I love for a living. That's kind of pretty good, isn't it, really?
Yes, it is. I tell people I get to do exactly what I want to do. I help people and make a couple ducats on the side.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and let you go for today. Thanks for being with us,
Chris. It's been a joy. And well, it's always a joy when the problem is it's actually stopping us talking, isn't it? What?
Yeah, Gerald is in the room.
Gerald's in the room. Yeah.
Gerald, your name came up at the beginning of doing a talk with Mr. Chris, Mr. Ken, Ramon Moonscarab, and myself and you. Would you be interested in doing that, talking about the male aspect of things? Yes, I agree. Okay, awesome.
Fabulous.
And for today, Chris, thank you. And
thanks for having me. Oh, right. Gerald, but yes.
Yes.
Wonderful.
All right. So I'm going to show you my nifty new out. Stick around. We'll talk backstage. Okay.
Thanks to everyone. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Just a perfect